bring in our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes, to talk about this. One of the heated interactions we saw was between Ted Lieu and Pam Bondi, talking about whether or not Pam Bondi perjured herself. I want to start here because I feel like this is a term that's thrown around a little more loosely in recent years. What actually counts as perjury, and will we see anything come from this congressional hearing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a mixed bag question. Let me start with that last part. I can explain what perjury is. What can we see coming down the road later? It can be a handful of things. And so let's be clear. Perjury is making a false statement to a court, to a tribunal, or in any type of quasi-legislative process or quasi-judicial process like this. And so this isn't court. This is not a hearing, but it is a quasi-legislative process and quasi-judicial process. And so, yeah, you make a false statement to Congress. There are a number of things that can be done. There can be criminal process. There can be a civil process. I mean, you can be brought up on criminal contempt. That's the first thing that would come to mind. But so I think that if it's the clear answer is making a false statement, making a statement that you knew or should have known was false, and then you state the statement anyway because you were under oath at that time. Crystal clear example, and that's for any court hearing or any tribunal or any quasi-judicial proceeding.
Khalif, we know there were 6 million or so documents, 3 million were released, right? Of those, a lot of redactions. The lawmakers are accusing the DOJ of under-redacting the victims, over-redacting powerful people being protected. How significant is that accusation?
Yeah, I mean, they're making that accusation, mishandling of the Epstein files is, I think, we're not, because I categorize that as the whole mishandling, releasing some, redacting some. That portion has been addressed. Refusing to apologize or directly answer questions in that heated exchange. A lot of that came out of yesterday's hearing. I'm not sure if any of that would rise to the level of any type of charge, any type of criminality. In terms of the mishandling, that is a direct violation of the Transparency Act that was passed regarding the Epstein files. And so it really will just have to determine who makes that determination if they violate it. And I hate to laugh because if you look at who has to review this misconduct, is actually the Department of Justice. And so Congress passed this law that forced them to turn over the files in a timely manner and disclose everything that didn't, have a victim's name or any information out there. And so transparency will be in the eye of the beholder because the current administration is actually the ones that are releasing the files. And if they're saying, hey, we released everything, the Department of Justice won't investigate it anyway. So back to Julian's question, I think if there is anything that comes out of this hearing or any of these things that we're seeing in terms of allegations, it won't be now. It may be when some other administration comes in and the Department of Justice then has an opportunity to say, well, hey, you guys were supposed to turn this over and you didn't. Or, hey, you guys were supposed to redact this and you didn't. And those are the things that I think may come out with some type of charges or anything, but I don't think it would happen now.
We know that lawmakers had the chance to review unredacted documents, right? They were able to do that. They couldn't take pictures, but they could take notes. Is there anything that they don't know now, though? What are their claims that there's information being withheld, even though they could look at these 3 million documents?
I think they're saying that. I mean, I've saw a number of Congress folks that have saw the unredacted files that are saying there's information in here that alleges that other individuals should be charged with a crime. And your failure to charge these individuals with a crime, based on what we've seen, is what we're calling into question. Okay, I've had an opportunity to see there's 6 or 7 names right here. How come these 6 or 7 people haven't been charged yet? And that is what they're asking Pam Bondi to say. Well, how come you haven't investigated? How come you haven't had any further conversation with them? That is your job as the main person that is overseeing the prosecution of anyone that had anything to do with Jeff Epstein. Well, how come no one else has been investigated and or charged? I mean, I think the rules of professional responsibility dictate a lot of what happened yesterday: impartiality, decorum to the tribunal, candor towards the court. But that last one, and that's what I just hit on, that expedited litigation. If you believe that something is there and it should have been investigated, if you believe it should have been prosecuted, you're failing to do your job as a prosecutor, and that's what those congressmen and women are asking her to do.
All right, again, our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes, weighing in on that for us. Khalif, thank you.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.